We've just got the latest inflation figures for you. They are now up to 4.2%. In the 12 months to October 2021. Consumer Price Index, CPR, rose by 4.2% in the 12 months to October 21, up from 3.1% in September. The Trade Secretary, International Trade Secretary, Anne-Marie Trevelyan, is here. I suppose that means that public sector workers will have to get at least 4% just to stand still with a pay rise.
So I know that the Chancellor spoke about this in his budget, and the figures looking forwards identify that there would be a slight increase in inflation in the months ahead because of a number of the pressures that have come through as the economies have all kicked off again post-COVID. And he noted at the time that departments' settlements would be there so that they could, at a departmental level, have those conversations with their workforces, and that, I'm sure, will happen in the months ahead, and the independent review bodies will be able to work with their departmental teams to put forward the right proposition.
I mean, I've said to your colleagues in the past, I'm not very good at maths, but I mean, even I can figure out that it needs to be at least 4% just to stand still.
So, indeed, that's what the peer review bodies are there for, to work with their own cohort of public sector workers and work with the departmental teams to get the right. So I'm sure we'll see that coming through in the months ahead. OK,
talk to me about Liverpool, if you would. We were all shocked about what happened. We've heard from the Home Secretary overnight. She says that what happened in Liverpool is the result of a dysfunctional asylum system. Is that what you think?
So what we saw was appalling. Thank goodness that the driver of the taxi wasn't more hurt, and I think we're all very grateful indeed for his bravery and his quick thinking, and hopefully he will be fully recovered, at least from his physical injuries, soon. I think what we see, and the Home Secretary obviously has spoken about it, and I'm sure will continue to as more evidence as this is looked at comes through, is that the challenge of ensuring that those who are asylum seekers who come to a country because they need our support, our care and the opportunity to live a safe life in the UK should get here in a safe way. So the huge amount of work that she's doing to stop gangs moving people around and abusing their vulnerability is something that she's very focused on fighting, so that we can make sure that as the kind and welcoming country that we always have been and continue to be, we make sure that those who really need our care and want to play their full part in UK society are the ones that come to the UK and receive our support.
But do you believe what happened in Liverpool is the result of a dysfunctional asylum system?
So, as the Home Secretary has already discussed, and she said it herself, that in the past this system hasn't been working, and she's been working incredibly hard in the last couple of years to really shake that down and make sure that it is coherent, works well and effectively, really importantly, so that those who are genuine asylum seekers and indeed who want to play a full and positive part in our communities in the UK, across the UK, are the people that are coming here, and that we provide that support.
So you're agreeing with the Home Secretary?
So I think her point is well made.
I'm asking what your opinion is.
Well, so my opinion is that I want to see a system that works, that makes sure that those who are most vulnerable and indeed who want to come here and be a fully functioning part of our wonderful UK society are able to get here safely, not being abused by those gangs who are taking advantage of their vulnerability.
Yeah,
so that's what we want to make sure.
Yeah, I'm talking particularly.
So I'm obviously not cited on the detail of the case and where the Home Secretary is, but I trust that her judgment of that situation and the timeframe in which the bomber in question came to the UK is one at a time when the system didn't work as effectively as it is now under her leadership.
So you're taking her word for it that the attack in Liverpool was directly connected to the asylum system in the UK?
So, as I say, I don't know the detail of the case, but
you're taking her word for it.
I think her point that the system historically had been dysfunctional and wasn't assessing with as much care as it needed to, and to make sure, as I say, that those who are coming here and getting our support through our asylum system are those who are the most vulnerable and who want to be a full part of our UK society when they get here.
Yeah, that would suggest that the whole case in Liverpool has been investigated, and that's the end of it, because otherwise, why would she say that? Well,
as the Home Secretary, she has a great deal more information at her fingertips, and indeed more widely about the depth of the system than those of us who aren't working in the Home Office.
Yeah, what we need to be concerned about, though, is demonising all asylum seekers as potential terrorists.
Well, precisely the opposite to that, and that's her point, which is that for those who come here, who we are able to provide asylum for and who wish to play a full part of our society are those that we want to see, and we want to support them, and we have some great systems, certainly in Northumberland, in my patch, we have taken in a large number of Syrian families over the last few years, and they are a wonderful, wonderful part of our community now. And, you know, their children are now thoroughly part of the school system and very much, you know, Northumbrians adoptees. And I think that's the sort of, that's continues to be what the Home Secretary and the Prime Minister's focus is, to make sure that that support is there for those families and individuals who are genuine asylum seekers.
Back to Liverpool, though, if I may. As far as the Mayor of Liverpool is concerned, we had him on the programme yesterday. He says the city won't be divided. There's a lot of nastiness online, he said, that's trying hatred on social media, as he put it. How does the Home Secretary's words about what happened in Liverpool being as a direct result of the dysfunctional asylum system help to unite the people of Liverpool this morning?
So I completely agree. I think some of the poison that social media can create is beyond unhelpful and can trigger all sorts of bad behaviour. And it's great to see the Voice of Liverpool, as we would expect, speaking as one, saying this was a traumatic and appalling event, but the town and all its communities will stand together against violence.
Yeah, but what
and I think that's... But the Home Secretary's words are very clearly about the historic nature of the system, and that now she and her team have been working very hard to make sure that it works better and fighting against those gangs who are trying to abuse the vulnerability of asylum seekers and their communities trying to reach a safe harbour.
OK, you say historic system, nature of the system, but, I mean, you guys have been in power for 11 years.
So, as I say, the Home Secretary's been in post for a couple of years, I suppose, and her work has been very focused on that. Well, as I say, I wasn't involved in that, and I think this is a continuing challenge. One of the really big challenges, and we see it obviously with some of the gangs abusing the system as they put vulnerable people into small boats trying to cross the Channel, amongst other places, and we've seen it over the years across the Mediterranean. Those most vulnerable families, and indeed young people who are seeking a safe life somewhere safe across European countries, or indeed in the UK, we need to make sure that as the UK, we want to bring in those who are genuinely vulnerable and need that support and can be full part of our wonderful UK's communities, wherever they end up making their home here. So I think that continues to be the focus, and that she is driving towards a system which can ensure that we have control of our borders, so that we can make those decisions in a rational and compassionate way.
Nevertheless, how can you be critical of the historic nature of the system, which is letting in potential terrorists, in the words of the Home Secretary, when you guys have been in power for 11 years, as I said? So whose fault is it?
So the Home Secretary sits in the Home Office and looks after that, and when she came into post, she was determined to make sure that those criminal gangs who were abusing the system...
Were the Conservatives in government not doing that before?
So that's continued to be a developed case. I think, as we've seen some appalling, you know, very, very big migration movements because of war in a number of countries, the movements have changed, and indeed these criminal gangs who are abusing the vulnerability of those have moved and changed, and like all criminal gangs, whatever it is that they're up to, it's always a bit of a game of cat and mouse, and I think the Home Secretary has been very, very robust since she came into post to make sure that that was the case.
Who are you criticising for the historic nature of the system then? Whose fault is it?
So the system is complex, like so many government systems, and I think the Home Secretary's focus when she came into post was to make it as streamlined, as impactful as possible, because she has always been very clear that one of the...
So Sajid Javid wasn't up to the job?
Well, I don't think he was. I'm sure he did a very good job, but I think when the Present Home Secretary came in, and because we have seen this huge rise in criminal gangs abusing the vulnerability of those who are seeking safe harbour, that she has thrown the full weight of her focus behind that to make sure that we are able to give safe harbour to those who most need it. Many other countries obviously do the same, and that is our focus.
Didn't do that. Is that what you're saying?
So he was working with, but I think the point that the Home Secretary has made is that the system has had to become more robust as the gangs have used migration in a much more aggressive way for their own financial gain, and that has had to be a much greater focus, and that the present Home Secretary has spent a lot of time pushing that forward. Well, I think we've seen big increases in it in the last few years as a result of these terrible and devastating impacts of war across the world.
Indeed so, not least Afghanistan, and we saw what happened there in August. Talk to me about sleaze. Why have we seen a U-turn from the PM on second jobs?
So I was really pleased to see the PM's letter yesterday, which sets out two of the key issues which were raised in a 2018 report, putting out a whole series of propositions. I think the PM's point is well made. That, I mean, this is obviously run by the Commission. It's not determined by government. But his suggestion that the question of jobs that relate to political consultancy, so explaining to those, a business how Parliament works, or indeed how the machinery works, is something that is not appropriate whilst you're a serving MP.
Okay.
And indeed that the main focus of your time spent should be focusing on your work as an MP. And clearly, you might be Chris Bryant and you might be a brilliant author. You might, in your spare time, write books. You might be Maria Caulfield and an amazing nurse who does shifts at the weekend in her local hospital and so on. But that actually, if it's related to your skill set, that's fine. But if you're taking your time away from
brilliant,
politics,
got it. That's the broad brush. I've got several supplementaries. Let's fire through them. What is reasonable limits on second jobs, which is the Prime Minister's wording? What is a reasonable limit? Is that the reasonable number of hours or a reasonable amount of money that you're earning?
So I certainly don't think it relates to cash, because that's not a relevant metric. Depends what you do. Like all of us, you do jobs for different reasons. I think it's going to be about the focus of your day-to-day effort. Neither you or I work a 40-hour week in the jobs that we do, but we know when we've decided that we've had long days. I think the point, and that came from the Commission, which is the question about reasonableness is one that would, that the next question will be how do we assess that? And I think reasonable is something that's understood. So, the Chris Bryant author in his spare time
I've got several supplementaries. Let's rush through them because, of course, the vote is today. So other MPs will want to know who decides which second job is appropriate.
Well, so again, what the Prime Minister set out, and this was in the Commission report back in 2018, is to identify that if it's something to do with your work as an MP, so explaining as a political officer.
Who's going to make that decision?
Well, so I think the conversation which we'll discuss will be whether that sits with the Standards Commissioner or indeed a what I call it the committee. I mean, that will be a discussion for parliamentarians to have. I think what we want is someone who is able to apply a rational filter.
So potentially Catherine Stone. Will there be an appeal process if she says something? She says no, absolutely not. That's not counted. Who will you appeal to? Should there be an appeal process? Because as we know, there was a bit of an issue with appeals.
Yes. Well, I think that's exactly to your point. That's a really important question, which I have no doubt many colleagues will bring up, which is, should we be thinking about having a proper appeals process? So, well, all parliamentarians will put forward and support, or indeed not support, a proposition that's put forward in due course. The vote today is to put this into the next stage of the process.
Who will decide if there's an appeal, though? Who will decide? Who will judge an appeal?
Well, indeed, that would be part of the discussions that colleagues will want to have with the Committee on Standards to make sure that if we bring one in, and that indeed, as you say, is one of the reasons why there were discussions and anxieties over the Owen Paterson case, is that it's something that colleagues have confidence in, because I think that's important. So
at this stage, we don't know what it's actually going to mean as far as reasonable limits, and we don't know what a second job might mean or not mean. We don't know who's going to be in charge necessarily, and we don't know who's going to be in charge of the appeal process if you necessarily want to appeal against a decision that's made about your second job. And the vote's today.
The vote is to move forward for the next stage, and then the Standards Committee and the Commissioner will go away and bring forward a proposition. So this isn't a constant,
though, isn't it?
Well, you'd love us, and wouldn't we all love an instant and complete solution overnight? This is an opposition.
Those are the questions I just came up with off the top of my head in the cab on the way here.
Well,
I mean, seriously.
Quick as you like, but that's the point. This is an opposition day debate where we will discuss some of these issues, and colleagues will have an opportunity on both sides of the House to raise their concerns and indeed, hopefully, their suggestions on what.
Though, isn't it?
Well, welcome to Parliament. The complexity of how our system works never ceases to amaze all of us. Opposition day debates will bring the opportunity for this conversation to be had more fully, and then the parliamentary House systems will be able to come forward with something which we can continue to move. As I think an appeals process, personally, I think is one that we want to think about bringing in. I think that's important.
We are out of time, but I just want to ask you about Caroline Nokes. Thoughts for her this morning?
So we have a robust system if there are concerns within the Conservative Party about that, and if Caroline obviously wanted to raise that through the party.
Absolute hammering on social media. I cannot read out some of the stuff that
Please don't.
she's had to deal with. I'm just not going to read that out at
there's
breakfast
no need
time.
at all.
But, you know, that is as a direct result of her standing up to be counted.
Well, indeed, and I'm very, very glad that anyone stands up to be counted if this sort of, as she suggests, behaviour goes on. It should always be called out.
You'll be investigating it, though, won't you? I'm guessing.
Well, I will leave Caroline to work with the party on that, but we have a robust system in place, and I hope very much that she will be able to work that through with the party machine. But more widely, this is something that, you know, all of us who are women, not only in political life, in all sorts of life, have for far too long had to tolerate the sort of casual sexism, the wandering hand that is completely unacceptable. And most men are as horrified as you or I are.
Yeah. What would you have done in that situation? I mean, if you'd done that...
At the time, I'd have probably slapped him. Which arguably isn't a better response either, but it would have been an instinctive response from me. I think Caroline will have showed great, personal restraint if she quietly, moved away. I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm of an age where I used to sit down at dinner and a hand would suddenly appear on my knee. You'd like, excuse me, gentleman on my left who I don't know, could you remove your hand from my knee? That sort of casual sexism was not uncommon. It is much less common, thank goodness now, but we do have much better and robust systems, and any woman who receives that sort of abusive behaviour from someone absolutely should feel confident that she can stand up, both face them down, but also have the support of those around her to make sure that the abuser in question does not do that. This is not acceptable. And it's not acceptable whether it's to a woman or to a young man who are more vulnerable and indeed, less able to speak out. And we have much better systems in place to protect them. And I would always call anyone who feels under that sort of pressure to speak up, and we will all stand by them.
Hear, hear. It's good to talk to you. Thanks
Lovely
very much
to have you.
for joining us. Thank you.